Every horror fan has had that experience where they found themselves utterly enthralled by a movie. Before the credits have rolled, they are already eager to yell from the rooftops, telling everyone about their new favourite film. But as the narrative is about to draw to a close, things begin to unravel. Rather than tying up the loose ends and devising a satisfying conclusion, there are some movies that totally bungled the end game. This issue is quite common in the realm of horror, since the genre tends to save its most shocking moments and biggest revelations for the third act. And no matter how well a slasher or creature feature starts, it may not be able to recover if the story concludes with a shoddily designed monster, ropey CGI, or a nonsensical twist. So with that in mind, I'm Ellie with What Culture, here with 10 great horror movies that fall apart at the end. Number 10, The Shallows. In The Shallows, med student Nancy is surfing in Mexico when a great white takes a big chomp out of her leg. Knowing it's only a matter of time before succumbing to her injuries, Nancy desperately attempts to return to shore. It's a bare bones premise, but the creative and heart-pounding sequences are sure to keep viewers enraptured. While evading the toothy beast, Nancy seeks shelter on a whale carcass, creates rudimentary stitches for her wounds, and befriends a bird called Steven Seagull. How has nobody made that joke before? And since Nancy wanted to swim in this spot to honour her recently deceased mother, it makes her dilemma much more heartfelt. Even though the fiendish fishy acts realistically at first, it turns into a cartoon character during the concluding act. At one point, it leaps into the air while letting out a defiant roar, despite the fact that sharks don't have lungs. When it charges towards Nancy while on fire, yeah, really, it's impossible to take it seriously. Number 9, Scream 3. Unlike the previous two installments, Scream 3 doesn't take itself too seriously. Sure, it's grisly as hell, but the threequel embraces the campiness that was already on the surface of the preceding films, offering more OTT deaths, a barrage of killer cameos including Carrie Fisher, and a few mind-blowing revelations for good measure. Rather than focusing on horror stereotypes, Scream 3 explores the rules of trilogies, which keeps things fresh. However, everything crumbles when Sidney Prescott discovers Ghostface is her long-lost half-brother, Roman Bridger. Roman explains how their mother, Maureen, abandoned him because he reminded her of his abusive father. After discovering Maureen settled down with another family, Roman swore vengeance upon Sidney and everyone close to her. Even though this is a lame twist, the movie almost gets away with it. Since the franchise embraces horror clichés, viewers should have expected a secret relative to appear eventually, especially since it's not the last time this trope was used. But then, Roman reveals he was the one who convinced Billy Loomis and Stu Macher to slaughter Maureen, unnecessarily retconning the entire franchise. So not only did Scream 3's ending suck, it cheapened the original film too. Number 8, High Tension. High Tension left such a colossal impact, it's partially responsible for popularising the wave of French horror during the turn of the 21st century. For that reason, this intense cat-and-mouse thriller fully deserves its place in cinematic history. That's why it's disappointing to see this potential masterpiece stumble so spectacularly just as it's approaching the finish line. Throughout the movie, Marie and her best friend Alexia are pursued by a switchblade-wielding psychopath. After 90 minutes of nerve-wracking chases and visceral fight scenes, it's revealed that Marie has a split personality and her other identity is the killer. Not only is this the most uncreative twist imaginable, but it also creates a couple of glaring plot holes. There are several shots from the antagonist's point of view, which doesn't make sense unless Marie is in two places at once. Not only that, the killer repeatedly showcases feats of immense strength, which would be impossible for Marie to achieve due to her small frame. High Tension is definitely worth a watch, but it might be best to turn it off before things get all weird. Number 7, Red Eye. Wes Craven's Red Eye opens with hotel manager Lisa getting ready for her overnight flight. After takeoff, a passenger called Jackson informs Lisa that he'll have her father murdered if she doesn't assist him with an assassination. Trapped on a plane, Lisa has nowhere to run, creating a powerfully claustrophobic atmosphere. Although the entire film focuses on these two characters, the palpable chemistry between Cillian Murphy and Rachel McAdams makes all of their interactions riveting. Also, Lisa is a surprisingly compelling heroine, since she is quick on her feet and makes a lot of smart decisions to get out of her predicament. But when Lisa gets off the plane, the confined suspense erodes away in an instant. When Jackson pursues Lisa, it feels more like a B-movie slasher rather than the white-knuckle thriller that preceded it. Look, we know Craven loved his slashers, but he didn't have to end every movie with a maniac chasing a girl around her apartment with a bladed weapon. Considering how enthralling the first two-thirds were, Red Eye should have had a far better finisher. Number 6, The Forgotten. 20 years after its release, The Forgotten has ironically remained mostly forgotten. This is a pity, since this psychological drama has a fascinating premise. The story revolves around grieving mother Telly, who's desperately trying to deal with the death of her son, Sam. One day, all evidence of Sam inexplicably vanishes. Worse still, Telly's husband and psychiatrist tells her that Sam never existed. Refusing to accept these outlandish claims, Telly does all she can do to uncover the truth. At first, viewers will be on the edge of their seat trying to figure out what's going on. Is it a government conspiracy? Is it a supernatural thing? Is Telly actually losing her mind? Annoyingly, The Forgotten's big reveal can be summarised in one word: aliens. Now, this twist could work if there was an imaginative reason why the extraterrestrials are erasing people's memories, but their actions are never explained. The aliens kidnapped Sam and mind-wiped everyone connected to him for alien reasons. When they fail to erase Telly's memories, they abandon the whole operation and give Sam back. The Forgotten is genuinely engrossing for the first hour or so, but drops the ball massively in its closing moments. Number 6, The Girl with All the Gifts. The Girl with All the Gifts picks up in a world where society has collapsed after a fungal virus has mutated most of humanity into zombified creatures called hungries. When a research team realizes young hungries retain their personality and morality, they begin experimenting with infected children, hoping to find a cure. Due to the abundance of unimaginative zombie flicks, The Girl with All the Gifts feels like a breath of fresh air. Not only is it a smart twist on a tired trope, but it also focuses on the ever-changing dynamics of the main ensemble rather than the overall premise, making a far more human story. The narrative is so effective at setting up character motivations and world building, it genuinely feels like this could be one of the best zombie films ever. Unfortunately, The Girl with All the Gifts uses all its best ideas in the beginning. Unlike other entries in this list, there is no specific jump-the-shark moment. Instead, it just slowly but unmistakably turns into another run-of-the-mill zombie movie. Although the second half isn't terrible, there is little to differentiate it from anything else we've seen a million times before. Number 4, Species. In Species, a vicious alien/human hybrid called Syl seeks out a suitor to mate with, hoping to bear a child. Believing Syl's offspring will pose a danger to humanity, a group of scientists band together to destroy the extraterrestrial. The premise may have B-movie written all over it, but Species surprisingly works, up until a point. The sci-fi slasher has a great cast, and with their solid performances, viewers can forgive some of the hokier elements, especially when a telepath is shoehorned into the plot. With a hefty amount of slow-building suspense, atmospheric chases, and creative action, Species is sure to leave horror fans thoroughly entertained. But when Syl mutates into her true form during the final battle, it's challenging not to laugh. Due to her janky movements and badly rendered design, the CGI beastie looks like test footage. Even if the special effects were up to speed, her abysmal design ruins the big showdown. Number 3, Last Night in Soho. Last Night in Soho follows a fashion designer called Ellie who finds herself transported to the swinging 60s as blonde bombshell Sandy every time she sleeps at her bedsit. When she's plagued by nightmares of Sandy being murdered, Ellie becomes convinced her dreams are real, compelling her to find out what really happened to the enigmatic starlet. The first two-thirds of this mystery thriller is Edgar Wright in his element. While admiring the cinematic dance numbers, the luscious visuals, and the enchanting performances, it's clear the Shaun of the Dead director had a ball putting this together. And that's why it's crushing to see The Last Night in Soho turn into just another gory slasher. Wright is so adept at avoiding the pitfalls of the genre for the first hour, it's bewildering to see him cram every cliché into the third act. It feels like a completely different movie. Don't get me wrong, there's no shame in enjoying a hack-and-slash flick, but when a movie opens like Psycho and ends like Friday the 13th, something has very clearly gone wrong. Number 2, The Village. Set in 19th century Pennsylvania, supposedly, the village revolves around an isolated settlement in the woods. The residents are forbidden from leaving since the area is swarming with monsters. When one resident, Noah, is badly wounded, his blind girlfriend, Ivy, ventures out of the woods for help. Boasting an intriguing plot, nuanced performances from the cast, haunting imagery, and James Newton Howard's exquisite soundtrack, The Village is sure to keep anyone on edge from beginning to, well, middle. Sadly, the nail-biting atmosphere goes out the window when it's unveiled that the monsters are the village elders in costumes. When the director, M. Night Shyamalan, makes his gratuitous cameo to dole out some overly detailed exposition, it's time to check out. The movie attempts to course-correct itself in the end by tossing in a chase scene with Ivy and what appears to be a real monster, but when this creature is revealed to be Ivy's brother, the climax is instantly deflated. Number 1. Sunshine. Danny Boyle's Sunshine centres around a group of astronauts who've been tasked with reigniting the dying sun. The isolation and pressure of the mission cause tension to run sky high, leading to heated arguments, fistfights, and suicide. Even though Sunshine could have been a by-the-numbers blockbuster, Boyle crafted a marvellous character study while delivering all the mesmerising sci-fi action that audiences could ever hope for. At least for the first hour. But in the last 45 minutes, the movie goes full slasher, inexplicably throwing a disfigured serial killer into the mix. Now, there's nothing wrong with a bit of genre bending. Films like Audition, The Cabin in the Woods, The Wailing became more compelling once the narrative took a major shift. Sadly, this decision doesn't work here, since Sunshine was telling a more thought-provoking story before turning into Halloween in space. Rather than elevating the tension, this drastic tone shift reduces it to dust. Overall, Sunshine feels like two different stories clumped together, since there was no slasher vibe in the first half of the story. And that concludes our list. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell. Also, head over to Twitter and follow us there, and I can be found across various social medias just by searching Ellie Littlechild. I've been Ellie with What Culture. I hope you have a magical day, and I'll see you real soon.